Hey, that is too awesome for words. What a great costume. Tell us, what are you?
A bubonic plague doctor.
That is too much, Chris. That's really.
Wow.
Oh, that's too funny. You know what I did? I forgot to do our opening meditation. And Jamie, would you like to read it and we'll light our candle?
For the prophets of Israel, the great value alongside truth was justice. For modern science, it was knowledge. Of course, many Hebrews, Jews, Christians, and Muslims have not prioritized truth, and many scientists, especially in recent decades, have emphasized pragmatics concern for their discipline at the expense of depreciating the quest for inclusive truth. Jesus prioritized speaking truth to power. To be a disciple of Jesus is to try to do so, and often to call attention to the failures of the community to prize truth. In one sense, this entire document is to call to truth. This chapter deals especially with the decreasing interest in truth on the part of modern communities, most often looked to for truth.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. And let's invite the angels in, shall we? The barn angels. Angels, welcome in this barn sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, we'll be a living sanctuary for you. The angel Gabriel from heaven came. His wings as white as snow, his eyes a flame. All hail, said he, thou lonely maiden Mary, most highly favored lady, Gloria. Okay, let's everybody unmute and sing really, really loud. These animals really like it when we have lots of voices. Ready? And all night, all day, angels watching over the Lord. All night, all day, angels watching over me. Now I lay me down to sleep. Angels watching over me, my Lord. Pray the Lord my soul today. Angels watching over me. I fly away with angels. I'll fly away when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. Sorry, I went up instead of down. I'll go beside the earth. Oh, and we are so happy to be here with Orange Kitty. And speaking of news from the John Cobb Farm, our newest furry friend is Orange Kitty. And he is such a joy. I can't even tell you. He's a real indoor cat. The other cats that came with the house, they're outdoor cats. They're very loving. They love to sit with the tree prayer stations, but they don't come inside because Walt is allergic. And
No, they never came inside.
they never came inside, and they still don't. But this cat just arrived at our door, and he's just magnificent. And we at the same time that we created this little kitchenette for our retreatant. So that's because he's got a little heated bed in there and a cat door. So he has his own little indoor place. And there's a lot of cat politics. Cats aren't quite sure they like him, but they're coping. And we don't know where he came from. So I have no idea. So at any rate, that's news. Any other news? Walt he did such a fantastic job yesterday. You can't imagine. We had the biggest pile of wood you've ever seen in your life, all up against the barn wall inside the barn. And it was so heavy, the whole wall was bulging out. It was going to, break the wall. And that meant that our barn door didn't open. So anyway, Walt he's really tired today. He did an incredible job with Jeff, who's not here today, but they just moved all this wood. It's like a mountain of wood. And then they fixed the wall. So congratulations, Walt.
Thank you.
It was awesome. Okay. Any other news from the John Cobb Echo Farm? All right. Okay. So let's see. What else? How is Mo? Because I know Mo has also had surgery this week, Nancy. Do you want to tell people about your daughter and the baby and Mo? And you don't have to, but it's been such a big week for you.
Yeah. So my youngest daughter, Mary Lou, had her baby like a month early, and she had to have an emergency C-section, and her uterus ruptured, and the baby was okay, but small and has to be in intensive care. And my daughter's doing pretty good. And yeah, so Mo had sort of a similar experience. Only thing, she lost all her she got spayed, so she's and you know, supposedly it takes 10 days for them to recover, but she's acting like her old self.
Yeah.
As soon as I took the collar off, you know, the collar of shame.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm telling you, I get to be with Mo 3 times a week, Mo and Nancy on great weeks. And I love this dog. It's amazing. It's just like getting to know people on Zoom. I feel like I know Mo, you know, Mo's like one of my best friends and I've never met him in person, but we're going to change that. I'm going to come visit. And do you want to tell everybody about your new house, about your house adventures?
Well, yeah, I finally got a written contract with the guy who was selling his house, and that's kind of a relief, but there's a lot to go. The inspection brought out a lot of concerns, and tomorrow is the septic inspection.
Right.
My house is done with inspections, and the people are saying they're moving forward, so that's good. And coordinating it all, like me moving out, all that stuff, you know, it's it'll work, I'm sure, but it's a little bit of a
Oh my God,
Inside.
what a week you've had. Unbelievable. Okay,
Have
I'm
you
gonna
found a house,
show you-
Nancy?
show
Yeah.
you the ducks. And also, I don't know if I can you see the chicken is on the table? Can you see that? Can you see the chicken on the table?
Yep.
Uh-oh. Never mind.
You might
It's
have
just-
to just pull it
Mhm.
back a little bit.
Yeah. it's okay. Okay. So here in this beautiful place, we talk to the trees. You already knew that, and I'm sure you also know that they listen to me. I talk to the stars. They always hear me. The breeze has the time to stop and hear what I say. I talk to them all in love. You all have to unmute. It's just too much fun to hear you. We sing with the ducks
Quack, quack.
and they are quacking and
Quack, 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 quack.
dance with cats and dogs. Who teach
Bow,
us
wow, wow.
pray for sheep and goats. Here on the John Cobb Echo Farm, we pray for them all in love. Meow.
Tweet, tweet.
Would you like a sip of my tea, honey?
Oh, no, but thank you, sweetheart.
Yellow tea,
Okay.
yours down.
Yeah. So Tony, would you like to read our scripture? Claudia, I have you as reading our Gospel of Mary Magdalene, if you'd like, after Tony.
Yes, thank you. Chapter 19. He went back into the praetorium and asked Jesus, "Where do you come from?" Jesus didn't answer. Then Pilate said to Jesus, "You refuse to speak? Bear in mind that I have the power to release you and the power to crucify you." "You would have no authority over me," Jesus replied, "unless it had been given to you by God."
Claudia, if you'd like to read our scripture from the Gnostic Gospel, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Peter said, "Did Jesus then speak with a woman in private without knowing it? Are we to turn around and listen to Mary Magdalene? Did Jesus choose her over us?" Mary wept and said to Peter, "My brother Peter, what are you imaging? Or, so you think that I have thought up these things by myself in my heart, or that I am telling lies about Jesus?"
Okay, thanks. And these are two, I think, really important scriptures as we think about speaking truth to power. Wow, what Jesus says is it's just, here he is, with Pilate, and he says, "You have no authority over me unless it has been given to you by God." So talk about fearlessness, talk about speaking truth to power. It's really a profound moment in the, oh no, Orange Kitty, he's allergic to you. So it's just a reminder of being a part of this prophetic tradition where truth and justice are of God, and we are protected by this truth. And then in our Gospel of Mary Magdalene, Nancy actually brought something up. Is it okay if I mention this, Nancy? When we did our Bible study this week, Mary Magdalene says, Peter is a hothead. We know this from many Bible stories and from the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And, he says, who do you think you are? You think we should believe you about anything? And, he's quite hostile. And Mary's response, I love, she weeps. And I've been in so many situations where I have been under attack and I wanted to cry and I felt like I shouldn't. And then later I thought to myself, I wish I had, you know what I mean? That's such a natural response to being under attack. And then she says she does not retaliate. So she has learned to love her enemy. She says, "My brother Peter." She didn't say, "You jerk, Peter. You've always been a jerk. You always will be a jerk." She doesn't. She says, "My brother Peter." And I think that both of these scriptures are very inspiring as far as how we become disciples of Jesus and speak the truth to power. Now, I don't know if any of you have read this chapter, and some of this is really hard. And John Copp's not here today. He's the busiest man. He's went to a reception at 3 at Pilgrim Place. Didn't think he'd be back, and then he has another one tonight at 7, where he's giving talks. So at any rate, he won't be with us. But so you can speak freely. I know that the UU ministers were sort of unsure about some of it, and he goes off, John Cobb, into talking about tired light and Einstein and the Big Bang, and so it's really kind of an indictment to science that and the inability of the scientific community to be truthful. And he also, of course, talks about, that the church has been very guilty of not being truthful as well. He talks about that for the prophets, they were seeking truth and justice. For science, they were seeking truth and knowledge. So he says this book, Confessions, is a call to truth and decreasing in a world where we have decreasing interest in truth. And I don't know how the rest of you are feeling if you're able to watch the news, but all of the news about what's happening around our elections is so distressing. And so much of it has to do with this, whether elections are lies or stolen, and who's telling the truth and who isn't. And it's just, you just can't quite believe we're marching towards this election. And so much of it is about people who are not telling the truth. And so it's really very, very topical to our elections, to say nothing of the whole world situation and how the bunny, Steve, I wish we had a camera person who could show you all these animal things that are going on. But it is just terrifying to think about. And I always feel somewhat relieved when I hear some of the leadership of the United Nations, because they really have done an incredible job of talking about the truth of how many people are going into famine and how close we are to ecologic crisis. And I'm so grateful for those few voices at the United Nations who are telling the truth. I like what John says, there are true stories, but there are many true stories. And we know that that's true, right? Scientists' commitment to radical dualism, he talks about this a lot, and has led to these ideas that nature is matter in motion and has no purpose. John talks about this all the time. And as well he should, as well as we all should, is that this is a worldview who has, of course, created our ecological catastrophe. If you think of matter and nature as being purposeless, it doesn't really matter if you torture them or, do all kinds of horrible things to them. So it's an important thing. Now, I want to just open it up, this conversation about tired light, that I have an abysmal scientific background, but light slows down as it goes through water and glass, for example. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard anyone question the Big Bang Theory, but this is not news for me. I heard John Cobb say this, maybe, 10 or 20 years ago. And I remember the first time I heard him say it, I was like shocked, like, what? So he really is a prophet in that he speaks what he believes to be his truth. But the more I have heard him, the more I understand what he's saying, that it's not necessarily, it's a relatively new notion in science, and it may not be true. He then, of course, brings up Whitehead. The Whiteheadian thought is about events, and that there are unique events that are repeatable. There are repeatable elements in all, but there are unique historic events, and that history is not, he believes, taught in universities any longer. And he says, he finishes by saying, we could think together again, the academy and the sciences about what is happening and what we should do if we could agree about a couple of things. So at any rate, what are your thoughts about this chapter? We're going to have our Day of the Dead celebration after we have a few minutes of conversation about this, but I'd be really interested in what your experience was. If you didn't read it, if you didn't like it, or anything, I would be just very interested.
Bonnie, I did a little bit of research online about a tired light and the red shift, which is mentioned there as he's talking about the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
And tired light theory, and these are both theories. It's very difficult to prove with absolute concrete evidence either way. But tired light has more to do with the interaction among the different elements that were there then. And that would be more Whiteheadian. And I could understand why this would be more to John's thinking. And the red shift is picked up particularly well by this new Webb telescope that's out there.
Yes.
The spectrography
Mhm.
is something that picks it up. Beyond that, I can't tell you too much, but the red shift is part of it that does and does not support either one theory or the other. But it is pretty abstract. And you really got it. There are a whole great long, what do you call the long mathematic, formulas
Equations.
there.
Yes, formulas.
Longly takes up pages
Yeah.
to prove one theory or the other. And that's I'll say enough. That's enough for me there. But I did do some research, and it's hard to sort of pin it down.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else? So did anybody read it? Maybe you didn't even read it. Walt read it. All right, Walt. Do you want to share anything?
I actually read it 3 times because it is a little thick.
Yeah, it is.
And in particular, not being aware of some of the terms made it more difficult for me. However, what I was thinking about during this is that scientific exploration that I know about says that anything that's proven can be replicated. And if it can't be replicated, then it's not true. But in fact, what John is saying is that I think this is probably from the prospect that there are
Unique kinds of events.
unique kinds of events, and so, and they're still true.
Yes.
So that the idea is that if there are various kinds of outcomes, it doesn't mean that it's false.
That's right.
There
There could be many truths.
many truths, or
Yeah.
presented in many different ways.
Right.
So that I could understand,
Yes.
and it's to me because in a number of situations I've read or studied and heard that if anything is true, it can be replicated.
Right.
So
And that's a real problem with the dualism mechanistic science. And for some reason, it makes me think of, William James and his variety of religious experience. I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
I was honored to be asked to go to Harvard Divinity School, very heady, and present at their first ecologic spirituality conference. And maybe I've already shared this with you. And I stayed right near campus and walked by a house, and it has a plaque that said William James lived here. And for those of you who may not know, he was a psychologist and a very famous a professor at Harvard, and he wrote about a lot of paranormal experience in a very famous book, The Variety of Religious Experiences. At any rate, he used the expression that about white crows. If there is one white crow, and just because you've never seen them, it's that kind of thing. That doesn't mean that there are no white crows. Okay, so that's a famous. It's what you're talking about. Just because something's unique and can't be repeatable doesn't mean that it's not true. Okay. And when I was so excited, I asked a passerby to have my picture taken because William James has been really important to me. And, by this plaque that said William James lived here. And I went right from there into the Harvard Divinity School lobby and had lunch and talked to this very nice psychology student at Columbia. And I said to her, oh, you should, right down the street is William James' house. You should go check it out. She said, who's William James? I said, well, you have to know as a psychology student. So I told her, and I told her the story about white crows. And then about 10 minutes later, she went to the restroom, and then I was going somewhere else, and I was leaving the lobby, and she came up to me. She says, Bonnie, check this out. And there was a woman there in the lobby who had a T-shirt that said White Crows, right? So this is what we call synchronicity. That was a unique experience. So at any rate, it's kind of off topic, but not really. It's about that there are many events. Some of them are repeatable and some of them are not. Brian, did you want to share something?
Yeah, two things. First of all, out of the Hindu tradition, there are 4 basic yogas, and the very most difficult one is called Jnana Yoga, and it's the way of thought. It's the way of the really studious philosophers and scientists. And John is a Jnana Yoga person, and it's known as the steep path to understanding. Then the second thing I wanted to say is I so appreciate the distinction that he drew between the mechanistic view of how the universe goes together and the energetic view that our science developed in the 18th and 19th and 20th century has really preferred mass over energy and has developed a very mechanistic view. But in fact, what we know now from physics is it a particle or is it a wave? It's flowing. It's flowing.
No.
What?
He's just chasing the rabbit.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Orange Kitty. Sorry.
So at any rate, if we return to a more energetic view of the energy of the universe, that it is flowing energy, and it's all alive and it's all relational, it returns us to really a much more reverent, I think,
Yes.
view of how things go together. And thought is energy, so our thoughts make a difference.
Yes.
And certainly our thoughts precede action. And at any rate, I just love that it re-enlivens the universe rather than having it be mechanistic.
Yes.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
thanks, John. Thank you.
Yeah. How about anybody else? Did anybody else read it or? No. No. Only one more chapter next week, Whitehead. And then maybe you'll read my chapter. I don't know. We'll see. So, okay. No other comments? The truth will set you free. Okay, so let's move on to our Day of the Dead celebration, and we've done this before where we have an opportunity. This is the 30th, and Day of the Dead is November 1st. So it would be nice if we could be together. And usually we've had an altar. I have an altar in my office, but we decided not to set one up here in the barn. But I have a video, Martha, if you'd like to play it. It's just, there's something about the Day of the Dead. It is such a beautiful celebration that comes, there's a lot of conflict between the indigenous religions and the Catholic faith. And like Our Lady of Guadalupe, there's been so much that has been created out of that tension and friction and a transformation of something just incredibly energized and beautiful. And we have so much to learn from the Mexican culture that instead of fearing death, is celebrating and inviting our ancestors and our loved ones back to honor them and particularly this tradition of going to the graveyards and cleaning them and having parties there and music and bringing food that the loved ones who've passed enjoyed, and sharing stories and what have you. So I just thought it would be fun to see this video because Walt and I have been in Mexico for the Day of the Dead, and it's just a profoundly beautiful and moving and celebratory and life-affirming celebration. So much of it is in this visual vitality of color. And so I just thought it would be fun to watch this. So thanks, Martha.
Okay, sure, what happened?
Today is the Day of the Dead parade. I was fortunate to get a press card, and we're gonna take some cool photos and videos.
Me dicen el negro llorona, negro, pero cariñoso. Todos me dicen el negro llorona, negro. Pero sabroso, yo soy como el chile verde, llorona picante, pero sabroso. Ay, de mi llorona, 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 y llévame al río. De mi llorona, 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 y llévame al río. Tápame con tu rebozo, llorona, porque me muero de frío. Tápame con tu rebozo, llorona.
Bras never.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, Martha. But this celebratory invitation to dance with death is just so, I think, so magnificent in our death-denying culture. And at any rate, I just thought I would share. I have brought from my altar a picture of my parents, Georgia and Jess, who I love very much and I miss. And I brought some food. You know, I've shared that they were both alcoholics, and that sounds terrible, but they were really a lot of fun. You know what I mean? We really had a party a lot. And so I get a lot of my sense of celebration and feasting from them. So I brought some cheese and crackers and salami, and they had martinis a lot with crackers and cheese and really good hors d'oeuvres. I loved happy hour because we always had really good hors d'oeuvres. So whenever I eat cheese and crackers and Walt eats the salami, here you go, honey, have some. I think of them, and I'm just so grateful that, I'm sorry they had a terrible disease, but I'm so glad we had so many parties and so many celebrations together, and they gave me that sense of let's have a party and be together. I also have somebody that Martha may remember is Alfredia Blackwell, and she was a wonderful woman in a church that Martha came to that I served in San Diego, and I love and miss her, and she was really such an incredible friend and advocate to me, and I miss her and I think of her often, as was Helena, who was my dearest friend, maybe ever, and she died a number of years ago, but she was a wonderful woman. And both Helena and Alfredia were just incredibly loving people. And I miss them and I honor them today. Okay, anybody else want to share?
I do, but let other people go first.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to share. I didn't bring in a picture, but I wanted to share my picture of my ofrenda, my altar. I can get it up close. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going
Oh,
to put,
it's beautiful, Martha.
let me hold on one second, spotlight. So there it is.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And the pictures, the picture right, it's smack dab in the middle as my mom and dad. Okay, let me remove the spotlight. There we go. My mom and dad, and unfortunately, I was just telling Tony today because we had started to put it up, the altar up today, and I was telling him that it just every year we just keep adding more and more pictures, which is it's sad because that means that people have passed in our lives. But my mom and dad, I've talked about them in the past. My dad was an alcoholic too, and my mom, was not, but very just a very sad person. And I wanted to share, I guess, very positive things about them because despite their poverty and trauma that they went through, they managed to eke out a life here in the United States. My mom was actually born here in California. My dad was born in Mexico, but they were able to create a family and raise 7, mostly my mom, but my dad, when he was here, raised 7 kids on housekeeping and landscaping salary, which wasn't a lot, and buy a house and keep us fed. And I marvel at that. I just marvel at how they were able to just create this life for us, and despite their diseases and their whatever mental health issues they struggle with, there of the 7 of us, we all have our issues. Everybody does, but I'm just really grateful that they were able to just, give us a life and support us and give us the foundation, at least, with a roof over our heads and food on the table, so I'm really grateful for them.
Anybody else like to share? Any of your loved ones who've passed that you'd like to share any stories or food or photos or memories?
I will share that frequently I'm doing 2 things. First, I'm part of the club that came from a dysfunctional alcoholic family, and also I've appreciated both Bonnie and Martha, your sharing, and there was light there too. There was love. There were many positive things, and I think to remember those and to try to pass those along is so important. But then the second thing I want to share is my cousin Harley Jessup was the art director for the movie Coco. And if you haven't seen the movie Coco, it's just a wonderful movie about the Day of the Dead. And if you look at the credits, you'll see Harley Jessup's name. So that's my grandfather's name was Harley also, and so my cousin is named after him, and it just makes me proud.
Thanks for sharing, Brian. Anybody else? Okay, well, we can,
I'll go.
okay, go for it, Crystal.
Well, I have a picture of my mom, but I don't want to take it out of the glass cabinet, so I'll show you it from the inside.
Okay.
a good view?
Can't-
Lower.
Little lower, maybe. There, lower, 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 lower. Oh, there she is. Now we see her. Oh, she's so beautiful, Chris. Thank you for sharing.
And then on this lower, on my lower deck, I don't know how, can you see that with the two Snoopies and the thing in the center?
No. Oh, now we can. Yep, lower, lower, lower. Yeah, we can see now.
That's my mother's ashes.
Oh,
My mom was a big Snoopy person. And that thing I hit vinyl I have in the center, that's Claire from the Breakfast Club. That was one of her like favorite films.
oh, that's great. Well, I know I'm really grateful to your mom for giving birth to you, and you're such a gift to all of us. So thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your mom?
Really get to connect with her until we were teens. I don't know, like it's a complicated story. Like a huge part of the problem was my dad.
Yeah. 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 I think many of us have been there, Chris. So yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Nancy, did you want to share?
Yeah, this painting was done by an art teacher that I had, Meredith Lipman, and she died of cancer. And I bought this at an art exhibit at a church I used to go to. And she was mad at me because it was a series. And she said this road was an actual road, like that she, when she was going home, she saw this view. And she was an atheist, but she was a very compassionate person. And I appreciated her teaching me about art. She knew a lot more about art than I did. But anyway, I'd like to remember her today.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a beautiful painting. Okay, anybody else?
I wanted, this is Angela. I just wanted to share a little bit my grandma, but I don't think I can hold it together. So I just I put it together. I left in the chat the link for her obituary. She led a really interesting life, really hard life. But I also want to share a couple of her pictures because she was striking. She was beautiful. Actually, let me share screen if I can. You know what? No, I'll share the pictures in the chat. But
Okay, so thank you, Angela.
but yeah.
We can copy that link and we can look at that later. Is that what
Yeah,
you're-
yeah. No, I know I won't be able to keep it together if I read
That's
it.
okay.
Yeah. So her funeral was just Thursday.
Yeah, we're so sorry for your loss, honey, and we're so grateful that your grandmother and you had each other. So I'm so glad you're with your family and you are together at this time. So thank you for being with us, Angela. And I think we'll go, okay, Will, you want to share?
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to piggyback on what Bonnie was saying about her parents and their hors d'oeuvres, which Bonnie has become a master hors d'oeuvre person. And actually the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, I bought a jar of their martini olives for Bonnie. And for this, unfortunately, I ate them all. So I don't have them. Sorry, Bonnie, but
That's
I'll get
okay.
another one. But they were delicious.
They are delicious.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think I would drink a martini to have one, but they're pretty good on their own. This is my parents. You want to hold that up?
Yeah,
Bonnie?
sure.
Walter and Catherine. And my mom way outlasted my dad. She was a sober person. She lived to be
There.
92.
Yeah.
And she was a extremely, what would we call it, a motivated Catholic. And I can remember my grandmother, who was from Italy, and my mother would take us to church every Sunday, 9 a.m. Mass. And, you know, maybe every other week I had to get a buzz haircut and go to confession. Now, I don't really know why I had to go to confession, because most of the time I didn't realize what it was. I mean, what I had done wrong. But I did it for my parents. And I mean, no, not did it for my mother and grandmother. And also my dad, who really was never a spiritual person or believed in it. Oh, and by the way, he was an alcoholic too, just to add to the numbers of alcoholics here. And, but my dad left a legacy. My dad was much loved in our town. People knew him quite well. He had his own business, and there's a whole story, which I won't get into, about a family betrayal and how he turned that around to his good and to our family's good. But he was mandated by my mother and grandmother to come to church once a year for midnight mass, Christmas Eve. That was like non-negotiable. He had to do that. And unfortunately, when he came to church, he usually had been drinking all day. And that was, you know, his thing. And he said in church this one time, very loud in our small little Catholic church, so that everybody heard.
Well, the basket was going around.
No, not while the basket, but it was a quiet time. And, you know, sometimes you have these things. And then he yelled out, talking about telling the truth. He said, if the Pope is so effing compassionate, why doesn't he sell his jewels and give it to poor people, the money to poor people? Well, that was that. He was never invited back to midnight mass again. Probably he liked it very much. And this is a unique one. I want you to hold this one up real quick. This is some of my crew that served with me in Vietnam. And one of them actually was killed in combat. And of this picture, interestingly enough, more than 50% of these guys are now dead. Most of which is from Agent Orange. So then this one here is a dear friend of Bonnie and I, spiritual teacher, Samten Rinpoche, his name is Samten Rinpoche. And he was a very well-known teacher in the San Diego area. He started the Tibetan Meditation Center in Escondido. And as you can see, he was pretty vibrant and pretty young. I mean, he probably, I don't know, what would you say, maybe 50 or something?
Yeah, young man.
And he just died.
Yeah.
He just died. It was a shock to both of us. And like many of the Tibetans do, the lamas do anyway, he went into a meditation, and 3 or 4 days later, they realized that he had left his body. And just the body was sitting there in meditative posture. So he's an incredible guy. And I remember when I first met him, when I first started studying with him, he said, well, talking about church, and there wasn't a lot of people coming at the time. He said, well, you can come once in a while, you can come never, or you could come all the time, and I basically will love you with any of those. So when I think about our church and
Yeah.
how some weeks we have more people than other, I think about that every week.
Yeah.
So Samten Rinpoche, thank you.
Yeah, and he was a beautiful man, and he cooked. He was a really good cook, and he cooked dinner and invited us to dinner several times. I always appreciated that so much. And yeah. Okay, anybody else like to share?
Oh, can I say one
Of
more thing?
course.
The other thing about Samten Rinpoche is he, on probably 4 or 5 occasions, came, and I know during one of them, it was a John Cobb Earth Day
Yes.
celebration,
Mhm.
and Samten Rinpoche came and said a prayer at
Yes.
the beginning of it. And on several occasions, he came to Bonnie's churches.
Yeah, he came to my installation in National City. Were you there, Martha, at United Church of Christ? Yeah.
And so he was very vocal about the idea that all religion is sacred. So
I have to share a story about him too, is that he decided he was going to create a monastery there in Escondido, and he didn't know how to build much of anything.
yeah.
And he always had this, his protuberance, the top of his head, and his beautiful maroon robes. And he would go to Home Depot and he would ask the guys at Home Depot, how do you put in a toilet? And they would tell him. And he figured it all out. He was extremely hardworking and clever. And a lot of those guys from Home Depot, he invited to the opening of the monastery, and they were there and were celebrating him. Just an extraordinary and very artistic man. He, the gardens and the altars, he was a really extraordinary
He was a
person.
man of God.
He was really a man of God, and he was very, very kind to us. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so Nancy, yes, Martha?
I just wanted to share really quickly, Angela had sent a picture of her grandma. I wanted to share it with
Thank
everybody.
you.
Oh. Can you see it?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Just a beautiful picture.
Those eyes are riveting.
Wow, really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Martha. Can you send
Thanks,
us the
Angela.
link? Maybe if you send it to me, then maybe I can send it to others or something. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Angela. She's so beautiful. One picture tells 1,000 words. So thank you. Okay. I have you down as reading our prayer, Nancy. I don't know if you'd like to do that, but we can go into our virtual wailing wall and begin with our prayers of confession.
Dear Holy One, you who we call by many names, we come to confess and to ask for forgiveness. We know that we have done things we should not have done and not done things we should have done. We long to be forgiven so we can begin anew. May we have the courage to speak truth to power. We come to share the truth of death today as we celebrate the Day of the Dead and celebrate our loved ones who have passed. We give you thanks, God, of love for their lives. We ask for you to bless our loved ones who have passed, and we lift up their names.
May we join together in silent prayer for our common home, Mother Earth.
Everyone, please unmute and say with me, "Our Father God who is within us, we celebrate your
Celebrate your many names.
your
Your
wisdom
wisdom come, your will be done,
and
unfolding from the
Yep.
depths within you. Each day you give us all we need. You
You
remind
remind-
us of our limits and we let go. You support us in our power and we act with courage, for you are the dwelling place within us,
the
the
empowerment
empowerment around us,
and
and
the
the celebration among us now and forever. Amen.
Amen.
And may we pray for Nancy's daughter, Mary Lou, and her baby and their family. May we pray for Angela's grandmother and her passing and their family. May all of us keep one another in our prayers and in our hearts, now and forevermore. Amen.
Amen.
May the blessing of God go before you. May her grace and peace abound. May her spirit live within you. May her love wrap you round. May her blessing remain with you all.